Hi there Waltoneers, I'm Jack and this is DSNY Newscast, and today Disney announced a major change that's going to be coming to Star Wars Galaxy's Edge, and it's one that's been sort of a long time coming. And this change is that as of April 29th, 2026, Star Wars Galaxy's Edge at Disneyland is going to be permanently expanding the timeline to include characters from all different eras of the Star Wars universe within the land itself. And this is a pretty big departure from Star Wars Galaxy's Edge that opened in 2019, as when it opened it was very much fixed in place as the timeline being episode 7, 8 and 9. And so therefore for Disney to be, unshackling Galaxy's Edge in many ways from that very fixed timeline, it's going to open it up to all new kinds of opportunities for the land itself. And it is exciting to see what kind of characters that we might see appear in the land in the future. But the main focus to begin with is going to be on the original trilogy characters. So Luke Skywalker already debuted within Season of the Force last year as an exclusive character within that one seasonal event there. But now he's going to be a permanent character within Galaxy's Edge. Also, Princess Leia Organa, Han Solo and Darth Vader are all going to be permanent characters within Star Wars Galaxy's Edge at Disneyland from April 29th onwards. And so that's the headline news here. And so with that being said, let's dive deeper into this topic. And first of all, I want to talk about the thematic changes. It seems at first glance they're going to be making smaller, subtle changes to the land, and we're going to start to see those happen up until April 29th. So you'll start to see some changes happen with some different posters going up, different signage maybe changing, different thematic changes around the land itself. The big one here is that First Order cargo is going to transform into what they're calling Black Spire Surplus. And this is going to have a mix of all different Star Wars merchandise within this location, but they're most importantly taking the First Order name out of the merchandise venue that's right there next to the TIE Echelon. Now the next thing is the TIE Echelon. We can see that Darth Vader is posing right in front of Kylo Ren's TIE Echelon there, but I reached out to Disney about this as they had like a media briefing where they gave us the news a little bit in advance, and they responded by saying that the Echelon was actually used within the late stages of the Empire within the Galactic Civil War, and so this is kind of an iteration of the Echelon ship that we can see there, and so the TIE line of ships exist within Darth Vader Star Wars universe. Now to me that sounds like there's a little bit of some retconning going on to get different aspects within the actual Star Wars Galaxy's Edge to line up for Darth Vader as well, but either way, even if they are having to retcon to get these characters in there and, explain away certain thematic elements, I don't mind it. I would rather see the original trilogy characters within Galaxy's Edge and make it the Star Wars land that I think we all thought it was going to be when it was initially announced in 2015 that, it was going to be kind of a celebration of everything Star Wars and not just the new trilogy. Now, obviously, it has to be said that it was an interesting experiment that they kind of tried with this whole world building around episode 7, 8 and 9, but in my book, when I think of Star Wars, I think of Darth Vader, Luke, Leia, Han, Yoda, Obi-Wan Kenobi. All of these are classic Star Wars for me, and I think that's what we all kind of wanted from Galaxy's Edge when it was initially announced in 2015, and now at long last, after all these years, we're finally getting it with Disneyland. So the entertainment changes here are a big deal, and it's going to open them up for new opportunities in the future. But let's keep talking about what has been officially announced right now, and that is that Dok-Ondar is also going to be updating that venue, the Den of Antiquities, with new artifacts to be reflective of the expanded timeline. And there's also going to be unspecified updates to the buildings and shops throughout the land to better reflect a kind of looser timeline for Galaxy's Edge and Batuu as a whole. So this, in my opinion, is just fantastic news, and I think it's music to a lot of people's ears in terms of Disney fans and Star Wars fans alike. And speaking of music, they've also announced that there's going to be music changes within the land, and you may remember that back in 2019 when it first opened Galaxy's Edge, they had John Williams, the legendary composer, compose an exclusive score for Batuu, and it was a fantastic score. I really liked that score. It feels very Star Warsy. But Disney has now announced that they are going to be bringing the iconic orchestral score from the original trilogy and integrating it within the land itself as well. So when you walk into Galaxy's Edge at Disneyland, you'll be greeted with that main title sequence, you know, the one that we all imagine when we see the Star Wars logo scroll on the screen at the beginning of every movie. You'll also hear the Force theme as well when you walk around the land and in the entrance tunnels. And then other notable orchestral scores that have been mentioned here are Han Solo and the Princess, the Desert and the Robot Auction, the Emperor theme, and also the Cantina Band. That orchestral piece from the soundtrack will also be played at Ogre's Cantina. So to me, I actually think the music changes here will make a huge difference to the kind of, I'm going to coin a phrase here, the Star Warsiness of Galaxy's Edge, and I think it will actually add an awful lot to Disneyland's version of Galaxy's Edge. Now let's talk about the logistics of how all of these different characters from different eras of Star Wars will actually work within Galaxy's Edge. As it's 14-acre land, but you know, you don't want to see different characters mingling with the wrong era of Star Wars. You want to keep them kind of the integrity of that story correct. And that's what they're aiming to do. So you'll only see characters which will make sense for them to be together within that story. So think of Luke and Leia being together, or Han and Leia, or Han and Chewie, or Luke and R2-D2. You know, these will all make sense together. And then you're also going to see Mandalorian and Ahsoka Tano will also be featured within the land as well, more towards the marketplace area. You're going to see Rey and Chewie featured over towards the Resistance area near Rise of Resistance over there. Darth Vader will probably be over near the TIE Echelon area. And then, of course, you're going to get that opportunity to get a photo with Han Solo with the Millennium Falcon, because that's where he's going to be, roughly near that location there, and Leia will also be within that location near the Falcon as well. But there's been no mention so far that Kylo Ren will be within Galaxy's Edge, but what has been mentioned is that Kylo Ren is going to be taking the place of Darth Vader over at the Disney Visa card meet and greet in Tomorrowland outside Star Wars Launch Bay. So you'll still be able to meet Kylo Ren, but he's going to be over there. And so that's where we stand in terms of the entertainment changes here. But the expansion of this timeline to include trilogy characters, it was asked of the Imagineers whether they would consider prequel characters in the future as well. And the Imagineers did respond by saying that this change does open up the possibility in the future for them to do something like that if they wanted to, because of this change. So who knows, maybe we'll see Darth Maul, Jar Jar Binks. That'd be a fantastic character, walk around character there. I think it's a pretty big omission so far that we haven't got Obi-Wan Kenobi also within this announcement for Galaxy's Edge. I would like to see the older version, the Alec Guinness version of Obi-Wan Kenobi, but I'd also like to see the Ewan McGregor version within Galaxy's Edge as well. I think that would both work. And maybe even, you know, in the future we might see an Anakin Skywalker meet and greet within the land. But basically there's such a breadth of characters for Galaxy's Edge to pull from the Star Wars universe, and this opens up so many possibilities for this land to now grow, expand and progress in the future like a living place that needs to be. And speaking of characters that I think we'd all like to see, there is one in particular which is integral to the entirety of the Star Wars universe, and that is Yoda. Now, Yoda obviously appeared in the original trilogy, he also appeared in the prequel trilogy, and also in the newer trilogy in Episode 8 as a Force Ghost alongside Luke Skywalker. So he covers the whole breadth of the Star Wars universe here for Galaxy's Edge, but now that they've unlocked the timeline for Galaxy's Edge, it opens up a whole new world of possibilities for different characters to appear. So this is just my own kind of personal appeal to Imagineering, that the character that I would love to see now within Galaxy's Edge is Yoda. And the reason for that is last year, in late November, Disney kind of broke the internet when they unveiled the self-walking Olaf animatronic robot, the bipedal animatronic robot there, that's going to be coming to World of Frozen at Disneyland Paris on March 29th, and also Hong Kong Disneyland's World of Frozen as well. And it's just incredible the level of advancement they've made in these bipedal robotics, with the level of character and emotion that the animatronic can also express in such a small unit there. And so I look at that and I see the way that Olaf walks, and I think to myself, you know, Master Yoda also has a pretty unusual walking pattern of kind of shuffling along. And if they could mimic that with a true to scale Master Yoda animatronic robot that could walk around by itself, that would be a phenomenal character to integrate within this new type of Galaxy's Edge, where it's not going to be tied to any timeline there at Disneyland. So, you know, it's not just that. It also opens up the possibility for all different types of characters to come to Disneyland's Galaxy's Edge in the future. Maybe even Jawas, Ewoks. We could maybe see C-3PO. There's plenty of different types of characters that now could make their way into Galaxy's Edge. And I think the one critique that a lot of people had of Galaxy's Edge when it first opened was, where was the life? You know, in all the concept images, we saw all these different types of alien figures and characters within the art to bring Galaxy's Edge to life. And when we kind of experienced it to begin with, it didn't have all of that. And over time, it's gotten better. We've seen more characters integrated. We've seen the droidlings, as I like to call them, walking around Galaxy's Edge. And we've seen, obviously, Mando and Grogu and Ahsoka and all these different characters come to Galaxy's Edge. But now that they can pull from the whole library of Star Wars characters, basically I think that Galaxy's Edge is finally going to fulfill that promise that the Black Spire outpost is a living, breathing outpost on the edge of the Outer Rim there. Now, one of the things I do want to focus in on here is expansion, but also the rides themselves. Now, we know Millennium Falcon Smuggler's Run is going to be receiving a major update from May 22nd onwards, and that's going to see Mandalorian and Grogu on board the mission for Millennium Falcon Smuggler's Run. And so there's an integration of that character within that attraction. And then we come to Rise of the Resistance. Now, this is going to be going down for a shorter refurbishment fairly soon, just a general refurbishment. There's not going to be any updates to the attraction. But in the future, I would like to see, this is only my own personal speculation, I would like to see this attraction changed and adapted to the original trilogy. And my reasoning for it is that when you think of Star Wars, you do think of the original trilogy. And still to this day, the IP in terms of Star Wars, the figurines, the lightsabers, the plushes, all this sort of stuff, it's all original trilogy. That is kind of the Mickey Mouse of Star Wars. Darth Vader, Luke, Leia, Yoda, Han, Chewie, they're all the Mickey Mouse Fab Five of Star Wars in that universe. So long term, I think it would make more sense to see original trilogy within Rise of Resistance. And you're probably wondering about all of this is, where does this leave Walt Disney World's Galaxy's Edge in this whole equation? And the answer we received from the Imagineers was that this provides the opportunity to tell unique stories at Disneyland's Galaxy's Edge, and then the Galaxy's Edge at Walt Disney World can also be unique in telling the original stories that Imagineers intended to with Galaxy's Edge. Now, I think personally, long term, we'll probably see some changes happen at Walt Disney World as well. That's just my own speculation based upon the fact that we saw Mandalorian and Grogu and Boba Fett. Those changes happen at Disneyland first, and then they were brought to Walt Disney World later on. And so long term, I do think we will probably see these changes happen at Galaxy's Edge at Hollywood Studios, but we're going to have to see what happens with Disneyland's first. And I think there's a lot of opportunities for both of these lands to get expansions in the future. The land was built like that for day one, to be able to expand at some point in the future. In Disneyland, it's behind the back of the First Order cargo, or the soon-to-be renamed as Black Spire Surplus. But in that location there's an expansion pad for them to build another attraction, another area of Galaxy's Edge. And this opens up the possibility to build it to anything they'd like now. And after all, Walt did say Disneyland would never be finished, and what better example of that ethos than to say Galaxy's Edge is going to continue to evolve. It's a very Disneyland thing to do here with Galaxy's Edge. And, you know, going all the way back to the beginning of Disneyland, there is actually a new Disneyland documentary called Disneyland Handcrafted that's going to be released on Disney Plus and also on Disney's YouTube channel on January 22nd. And yesterday, I saw an advanced screening of this new documentary, and I've got to say, it was truly fantastic, as being able to see this footage beautifully remastered would ordinarily by itself be enough to get me to watch it, but the way that Leslie Iwerks and her team have artfully pieced all of this footage together with excellent sound design really conveys the very real stress and sense of urgency that faced not only Walt Disney, the Imagineers, but all of the crew in creating Disneyland in just under 1 year. And to be honest, it leaves you with a whole new level of appreciation for not only Walt's audacity to make Disneyland in the first place, but quite frankly, after seeing all the construction footage, astoundment that Disneyland ever managed to open on time. And so it goes without saying that it's a must-watch for any Disney fan, but also I feel that it has a greater historical importance here and a wider appeal, as to be able to see this icon of imagination documented in such a detailed way is truly unique and definitely worth checking out on January 22nd. And so with that being said for today, it's over to you, Walt's ears, as I would like to know, what are your thoughts and opinions on this change? To me, it's been a long time coming and they're finally going to do it, and I'd also like to hear what are your suggestions and your ideas for what they could now do within Galaxy's Edge now that Disneyland's Galaxy's Edge isn't tied to that very strict timeline. So what would you like to see change within Galaxy's Edge in the future? And of course, be sure to subscribe down below, hit that notification bell, and check out the rest of the videos on this channel. And I'd also like to say a massive thank you to the official Walt Disney Club over on Patreon for always supporting this channel, and also a big shout out to the Walt Disney Gold members that you can see here on the screen, as well as Walt Disney Diamond members JC Russell, Justin Tupper, Tim Parsons, and Noah Anderson. And with that being said for today, I've been Jack, you've been you, and I'll see you real soon.